Hi everybody, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching, and I am wanting to speak about what you can do as you support your child through the major changes that we're dealing with coronavirus circulating through the U.S. and multiple countries across the world, and wanting to know, lots of parents are reaching out, wanting to know what they can do to support their kiddo when life is full of uncertainty, when there's some things that in terms of your child's schedule has changed, when your work schedule potentially has changed. And I want to talk about this in particular related to what's going on right now for everybody. But I also want to make this more of a global lesson because I think it's important for us to be aware. And let me just double check that I'm in the right place. For some reason, I'm having a little brain fart that I'm streaming in the right place. So give me a second, guys. This concern that lots of parents are walking through is super relevant for really any change that your child is experiencing as a highly sensitive child, because when the environment changes and when people are experiencing increased anxiety or an increase in change in routine or an increase in change of what expectations might be. Yep, I'm in the right place. Okay, good. Your child is going to relate to that in very similar ways. So regardless of how our country decides to handle the coronavirus issue right now, what we're doing is addressing how to lead your child as a highly sensitive child and how to parent, right? Because the concern of what's going on right now in our current climate has a more global concern as a parent. When you think about any change that your child is experiencing, whether their teacher has to leave midway for a maternity leave, or another change might be that your child has to, their friend moves. And so life is full of all sorts of changes where your child is not able to predict what's going to happen in the future, and a major disruption in the routine might occur. And so what I want to do is talk about what is possible for your family and in this current time now, but also make this training available as a resource for you beyond what happens and how we can flatten the curve with coronavirus right now. Because I think it's important to go beyond the strategies of trying to figure out what you're going to do with your kid on a daily basis. There's tons of schedules out there on Pinterest. That's really not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is giving you the ability to lead as a parent whose child notices the world at a greater level and a deeper level than other children. And so they're picking up on your subtle experiences of frustration or anxiety or worry about what's going to happen with your work schedule or with your other kids and how many days that you have to manage a change in schedule. They're picking up on, if you have a two-parent household, on who's staying home and who's not. They're picking up on the fact that the school has shut down, but wait a minute, everybody's supposed to be healthy. Well, isn't that weird? Why are we staying home when we're healthy when usually we stay home when we're sick? And so that might be a worry that your child is experiencing, but might not be communicating to you that it's the opposite of what's going on, and you can address that with your child. And so when we think about the biggest challenge that I see in the parents that I work with, really when a major change kind of throws them for a loop. I had a family go through boot camp a couple weeks ago, and the whole family got hit with Flumageddon, we called it, because it was just a mess. And so meltdowns upticked, and we had the support, we rallied, and we got them out of it. But what I see in terms of what supports parents put in place when you're parenting a highly sensitive child, and what routines and what schedules you have, and what systems you have in place, really, that's only one part of the puzzle. What we have to address first is your mindset as a parent and what your perspective is in terms of how you handle challenges, how you handle yourself as a parent what's being thrown at you. Because if you're not handling things that are unexpected in a way that is going to allow you to send the message to your child that everything's going to be okay, then you're not going to be able to implement any strategy or system in place successfully for a long term. So when we think about many of the schools around us in Maryland, but again, I serve people across the nation. They're canceling for at least the next 2 weeks, and some might be longer than that. When we think about what your days are going to look like and how they will turn out, really what we have to understand is how you're perceiving this experience, and that is going to dictate your whole wealth of ability to implement any strategy that you plan to implement in terms of routines and things like that for your kiddo. Because we know children thrive in routine, highly sensitive children thrive only on routine, and so when we think about that, that is absolutely a value, an important value for parents of highly sensitive kids. But with that being said, slapping a poster on the wall is really not going to be effective for you guys, even if the whole family creates the poster. If your mindset is not putting you in the position that's going to allow you to set the tone for how the family handles major challenges when things get thrown your way. So I want to actually share a personal example of this because I think what's important in life, but then also being a professional, holding the licenses and the specialties that I hold, it's also important to understand that we're all human. And so you as parents, I'm also a parent as well, with a husband who travels. So sometimes that means I'm single parenting for lack of a better word, at home. And so there are many challenges that I experience as well. And I really want to capture this because it's important for you all to understand how and what it takes to support a mindset of knowing that any challenge is an opportunity. And any challenge is you have the option to choose to struggle, or you have the option to choose to make it something that you are capable of overcoming. Now, 4 or 5 years ago even, I would not have agreed with that statement. I would have said, nope, you need to validate my my frustrating experience. This is hard. Life is tricky. Let's talk all about how tricky it is. And I would not be using the word tricky. I would probably be cursing. And I would kind of go on and on and on about that stuff. And I would call myself blunt and honest and say that's the thing. And so I want to share a personal example of how life kind of threw me for a loop a couple weeks ago, a couple Sundays ago, to help you see what's possible for your family, but then also to help inspire you to focus on this for your family and understand where the possibilities are in terms of shifting your mindset and parenting your highly sensitive child, but also raising your whole family. And, guys, say hi, hashtag replay if you're catching it on the replay. Say hi if you're here live. I see several of you are watching now. And so when we think about what's going on, guys, I want to talk about this. So 2 Sundays ago, the 1st of March, I flew to California. I'm on the East Coast, so I flew across the country for a week-long training by myself for the first trip away from my 3.5-year-old now. By myself. My husband and I have taken vacations, but this is the first time I was across the country by myself, away from my baby doll, and but then also for a work event. So I was excited, but then also we prepped my daughter for that, and my mom was generously available to be Nana for the week while my like I said, my husband travels. So hi Jody, hello. Jody's heard this story. So anyways. Sunday, I fly in. I had been up at 3 a.m. for my flight, which is midnight California time. So midnight, I had been up since midnight California time. And I tried to nap when I got to the hotel, but they were doing, there was like a country, it was at a country club. So they were doing like a tennis match. And so the tennis match was going on. And I don't know if you guys have heard tennis matches, but every time the tennis players are playing, it's silent. And then when it's not, the DJ is like, let's party. And so any other time I'd be like, let's party. They were actually playing really amazing music. But I had been up since midnight and had a dinner at like 6 o'clock that time. So had been up since midnight California time, and I was like, I need to nap, mom brain. Also, I used the flight to be productive because I had lots of energy and I drank coffee. And so it's like I got to nap because otherwise I'm going to be a zombie by the time I hit the dinner. And I was excited for the dinner, and so it was hard for me to sleep. And I kind of dozed for an hour, and then I realized maybe I should just take a bath, because I didn't want to walk around and kind of overextend myself. I knew rest was important at this point, especially gearing up for a week-long conference. So I get in the bath, and I hate taking baths, guys. It's not my thing. But I knew I needed to relax or whatever. And I get in the bath, and I'm reading my book, and it's pretty hot, and I stand up and I get a head rush. And I'm certain, guys, that there's a story here that you'll benefit from. So I'll try to make it quick. I get a head rush, and I fell. I fainted. And so, or either that or I slipped, but whatever. And so I ended up cutting my lip and chipping my front teeth in the hotel room by myself. And so in that moment, I'm pretty skilled at being, involved in crisis intervention. It's what I do for a living. It's also, I'm a mom. So, just jump straight into action, put pressure on the wound, realized my teeth were messed up. My mouth was pretty messed up. And I needed to call the front desk to get EMTs. We walked out of my room because I didn't know if that was going to happen again. So anyways, I got dressed. I called the front desk and was like, you need to bring ice. And we got to get to the ambulance. So security guard comes, and he's like more nervous than I am. He's kind of shaky. The ice won't break. And I'm like, it's okay. We'll get this figured out. Just snap it. We'll get moving. Please call 911. Oh yeah. Let's call 911. So we get in the ambulance, and the ambulance, at that point the bleeding had stopped, and they're saying, you can either come with us or get an Uber. And I'm like, guys, let's just go. So we go to the hospital, and thankfully I was in San Diego, so I was in the U.S. thankfully, and so I knew I was going to get effective medical care, and I went there. And I was speaking to the nurse, and my mom's a nurse, so I was FaceTiming her by the time I got over there, and showing her, and we're talking about it. And so my mom, the nurse, and then I got seen by a doctor and a physician's assistant. And everyone, and myself, I've watched enough ER to know that I was going to need stitches. And so everybody was saying stitches, whatever, stitches. My husband is calling dentists for emergency dental work for me the next day, and just trying to find an effective dentist to see me because like I said, a huge chunk out of my front teeth, and I was going to this week-long conference. And so I knew that that needed to be resolved. It wasn't a pretty sight, guys. And also, you can't go a week with that all jacked up. You got to solve that problem. And so what I really want to talk about, though, in this circumstance is my mindset and what was going on through my head. Immediately straight into action. But then after that, guys, I was thankful. I was focused on what was working well for me. I was grateful that I was in in an area where I was not nervous about the medical care I was receiving. I was grateful that I was receiving, that I was able to reach my mom and FaceTime her because she had medical opinion that I trusted. I was grateful that I was able to speak to several people, and even though, while my mom insisted that the plastic surgeon consult with me, that they at least took a picture and sent it to him because he was on call, and I was like, oh my God, Mom, let's not make this even more complicated than this needs to be. And then I was grateful that I was getting the support, and that everything was basically being handled. And so, guys, when we think about what's going on, I really want to talk about that in the face of what we're dealing with here, not because I'm asking you to be grateful that we're experiencing this coronavirus spreading through our lives, but because when you focus on what's working for you and where your opportunities lie, you can actually see more creatively how to solve problems in an effective way. And so if you think about what's happening for your highly sensitive kiddos, the support that you have in place in allowing your child to solve problems creatively is really, really crucial to allow your child to see the opportunities in the face of adversity. So, long story short, there was a gentleman who was using the tech. They wanted, because I had potentially fainted, they did a CAT scan and they did an EKG on me, make sure it wasn't a big issue. And so the gentleman who was doing the EKG wanted to reassure me. He wanted to tell me that everything was going to be okay. And he was certain about it, look on his face. And if I didn't have the resources, and the experience, I might have taken his advice at face value. And when he looked at me and he said, "Oh, just some Dermabond will solve this problem. You'll be fine. You probably don't need stitches. You'll be out in no time." Now, guys, as I mentioned earlier, my mom, who's a nurse, the nurse in the room, the PA, physician's assistant, the doctor, they had all mentioned stitches. And this gentleman who's skilled as a tech in running an EKG, he was like assured of himself and focused on wanting to help me feel better. And with that, he was spreading, or sharing misinformation. And thankfully, I had the wherewithal, the knowledge, and the certainty to know that I was trusting the advice of people who were skilled in their field, while he was skilled in managing the technology of the EKG. And so we had a pleasant conversation, and he, asked to look at the wound in my lip. It was pretty jacked up. And long story short, I needed 6 stitches, guys. And so, of course, the doctor put the stitches in, took care of me, all wrapped up, was able to go to bed that night with most of the problem solved, and the dentist appointment was the next day. So I had the dentist appointment the next day, and what I was focused on in that whole experience was how fast I was able to solve the problem, how efficiently I was able to solve the problem, and how there was a wealth of possibilities in allowing me to solve the problem. Multiple doctors, multiple options, multiple consults, 5 dentists available to me who took emergency appointments. I got to pick and choose who was going to see me earliest, and they all had excellent reviews and accolades online. And so, knowing all of this, guys, what I'm talking about is that when this happened to me a couple weeks ago, I could have allowed it to dictate how my whole trip was going to be. And it was literally the first day. I missed the dinner and I missed the first half of the first day of the conference because I had this major accident and I was, across country. Now, I'm not saying I'm superhuman. In the hospital, when my mom said, you should really get a plastic surgeon to look at that. It is your face after all. And then my husband said, "I agree with your mother." In that moment, I was like, "Really, guys?" So I shed a few tears, absolutely. But those tears did not circumvent my ability to solve the problem. I felt confident, not that I was sucking it up and stopping the tears because I was embarrassed, but I literally didn't feel the need to experience and express a significant amount of emotional output. And that was kind of a clinical term, guys. I didn't need to cry a lot because in that moment, I felt certain, I felt capable, and I felt surrounded by support. Same thing with the dentist the next day. I went home and I by the time I got by myself and I was back in the room where I had the accident and I was, in that hotel room and I was putting myself to bed and I was like, oh, I could just get a flight and make it early and go home and be with my mom and she would, care for me and my kid and we'd have a great week together and I would skip the conference and I would, I would get to go see my my dentist at home and potentially solve the problem faster or differently. And so, yes, I thought that. I had that thought and 2 seconds later talked myself out of it and was like, nope, the problem is almost all the way solved. You're good to go. You came here for a reason. You're here to support other people and for your own training. And so everything will work out just the way you want it to. Now, guys, like I said before at the beginning of this talk, 3 to 4 years ago, I would have been stuck in the suck. I would have been, this is awful. This is horrible. How annoying. Hey, Krista. I would have said, I can't believe that this is happening to me. How dare they not put a guardrail on the tub? Like, blaming the country club for, like obviously how ritzy, right? But like the conference was at a country club. So blaming them for having a tennis conference, and like, why wouldn't they, have the music down low for guests? This is a hotel after all. Like, I would have had all those complaints stewing in my head, maybe not sharing them with other people, but I would have lived in that emotional home of frustration and irritation and annoyance and inconvenience. Inconvenience from a place of negativity. Now, certainly I was inconvenienced. People ask me, how you doing? I'm like, great, inconvenienced, but great. Like, I wish I didn't miss the first part of the first day of the conference. Absolutely. But in general, I'm positive. I was experiencing a wealth of gratitude when the dentist and her assistant were working on my teeth. It might have even been two dentists who fit me in and worked just based on their knowledge and how they were talking to each other. They were able to serve me and squeeze me in. And I was moved and almost brought to tears. And that experience was a cultivated experience, guys, because for years I've been focusing on what's working well. I've been working on managing how I view the world. I've been practicing mindfulness and gratitude and meditation, etc. And part of the system that we put in place for boot campers is just that. Because when you think about what works for parenting a highly sensitive child, you are the leader. You are the foundation of your household. And I'm making this semicircle example because one of the things that I often teach my clients is that life for a highly sensitive child is like the Truman Show. And I don't know if you guys can get that reference. There's a movie with Jim Carrey, I remembered, when I was growing up. I don't forget how old I was. But basically the premise of the movie, and spoiler alert, is that Jim's character is he's raised in this like fake town, and they videotape him, and he's a character in a TV show, the Truman Show, and they watch Truman grow up, and Truman has no idea that he's literally on a movie set, and so all these life experiences are created by the director. And so when I speak about this to my coaching clients, and I talk about how you are the director of your child's Truman Show, it really is important to divest and to digest that information for understanding that you are the one who's showing up as a leader for your highly sensitive child. So if internally you're experiencing anxiety, frustration, aggravation, inconvenience from a place of negativity rather than just observation, anger, worry, fear, then that is your job to change and shift yourself out of that mindset in order to lead your kids, especially if your child is highly sensitive. Because if you're not focusing on that first and you're just moving into strategy, there's all sorts of like color-coded calendars, as I mentioned before. Hi, Jill. On like what to do for your kids when you're in charge of homeschooling for the next 2 to 4 weeks or whatever. Guys, all that's going to go to shit if you in here, your Pigpen's dirt bust, Pigpen's dirt pile following you. Okay, so recognize that now and any change, that your mindset and recognition that change is an opportunity to assess what's working is crucial for you in these times, okay? Because if you're going straight into fix-it mode, then you're doing that exact same thing when your kid's melting down, I can guarantee it. If you're going straight into fix-it mode, then you're doing that exact same thing when you're experiencing negativity and you're circumventing your own emotions and you're not solving the problem long-term. And so I speak to many, many, many parents over the last couple of years taking these calls across the nation, but then also, over the last decade, working with parents of sensitive children and specializing it, and then also supervising a team who works with parents of sensitive kids. And, we see them in my private practice. Without this piece, Nothing else works. And what I mean by that is that you will put it in place and it will be a great idea for like a couple of days. And then when something doesn't work well, instead of looking at it as an opportunity to assess what's working, you will look at it as a foiled plan. So one of the things that I see when, and you guys have watched part of the interviews in terms of people who have graduated boot camp and who have successfully solved this problem for eliminating daily meltdowns, or supporting your child from avoiding escaping their emotions. And this is something, as an aside, that you guys have probably heard me say before. A meltdown is an emotional escape. If your child is bubbling up to the top like lava, then your child is escaping their emotions, and that's why they're up there. With that said, if your child is escaping emotions because they're crying or hiding under the bed or saying they're a bad kid or avoiding all conflict or stuck in perfectionism, it's the same problem. Whether your kid's having big emotions and melting down or having big emotions and imploding, it's the same cause. And the first piece is how you are creating that bubble for your kid. And the next thing is recognizing that every change is an opportunity to create an effective routine. So, of course, as we said before, the strategy is important. The strategy is crucial. I spoke to another parent who had done some other parenting program that's worked for attachment theory based and focused on parenting in general. And the core understanding is that when you are secure in your emotional awareness that your child can solve problems, then your child will come back to you, and it's like a circle. I'm not going to name the theory and the approach. Some of you might be picking up what I'm putting down. Then when your child comes back to you and they see you as a secure base and full of love, then they will leave you to solve their problems. Guys, that doesn't actually work for highly sensitive kids. You need the strategy. The strategy is crucial. But without the mindset, the strategy doesn't work. The strategy falls flat. Okay? Flip-flop the other thing. If you try to go straight for strategy with the wrong mindset, then you will also fall flat. And so this is why you're stuck in this cycle, because when you get really excited about new ideas on strategy, then you're focused on that and your mindset tries to rise up. Oh, things will work well because this is a new idea. But your mindset's not sustainable if you're not working on it. And so when that happens, when the strategy falls flat, you lose faith in raising and guiding your child. And so you have to be able to keep them both at this level, okay? So then when your mindset is here and you struggle with strategy, then your mindset actually allows the strategy to rise up. And when your mindset is here and you try to use a strategy and it doesn't work, then you give up on the strategy. I mean, you've seen it happen. This is why it's so cyclical to raise a highly sensitive kid who's experiencing big emotions. But the major problem is that part of you are focused on the fact that the pattern has broken because of the strategy you're using, but you will not break patterns if you don't address your mindset. So when we think about that change, it does not need to take years to solve this problem. We see parents in boot camp do this all the time in 8 weeks, turn it around. And we know that they're able to make that major shift and then focus on mastery, because parenting a highly sensitive child is a support system that you put in place that you then have to master. You cannot expect to make major transformation and turn it around and then be like, okay, my kid's good, because we see parents who do that and they think, okay, my child has generalized some skills, then we can kind of lax and everything can be hunky-dory, and we can turn things around and throw a ton of spontaneous events at them and expect everything to go fine. You need both. You need the mindset and you need the structure and you need the routine to support your child. And without those three things, you will not be able to support your child in understanding what works for managing their own big emotions so that they don't escape them and so that they don't melt down. And so when we think about what happens in that respect, I use the word meltdown because whether it's an explosion or an implosion, it's the same thing. Your child is literally emotionally melting into a puddle of incapability. So if you as a parent do not view challenges, change, uncertainty as an opportunity, then how do you expect your kid to do that? How can your child emotionally manage a change in their experience and in their routine if you're focusing on just solving the problem at hand? It's okay, everything will be all right, because let's look at the calendar. You'll be back in school in 2 weeks, so all we have to do is focus on the next 2 weeks. Hold it together and keep going. You know what that does, guys? It builds a people pleaser. Hold it together and keep going. Head down, keep going. That's a workaholic. So you have to understand where the skills that you're trying to support and how you're leading your child in building relationships and building a relationship with their own internal sense of emotional control. And if you're focusing just on strategy, then it's not going to work. And so when we think about what it takes to parent a highly sensitive child and what it takes to sustain and maintain parenting support for your highly sensitive child so that they can sustain and maintain emotional health, emotional safety, and clear emotional expression by coming to you when they're upset, what is so important is to understand, and one of my mentors said it best this past week, that the time to prepare for battles is before the arrows are flying. And so guys, right now, if when you see the arrows flying during this time of waxing and waning routine or fear or worry, and this is your battle right now, and your child is struggling exponentially, then that is a clear awareness. That should be bringing a clear awareness to you. It's late for me. It should be bringing a clear awareness to you guys that your preparation for these circumstances has not worked. And so I encourage you to understand where you want your child to be. How do you want your child to view challenges? And if you're not leading first, then your child is not going to follow suit. So for those of you who just popped in, again, say hello, hashtag replay if you're catching it on the replay, and be sure to watch the rest of it because I spoke about a personal experience. And to sum it all up, when you think about how you're going to support your child in staying steady when the world feels rocky, your goal, parenting a highly sensitive child, is to allow your child to experience emotion, but not ride the roller coaster of emotion. Okay, they need to be on the driver's seat, not the one who's like being controlled. And so big emotions can be big happy or big sad or, anger or frustration for a highly sensitive person. But your child does not have to choose to suffer or choose to stay miserable. That is absolutely a choice. But quite frankly, what we see in the coaching business as well as in the practice, and then especially with our teens who come to us by the time they're older, is that often they don't view suffering as a choice. They view it as inevitable. And if that's a case for you and your family, then I encourage you to take action immediately on how you see your own significant perspective on what's going on for you right now during the coronavirus outbreak, or whatever you want to call it. I'm staying off the news, guys. But when you're focusing on what's going on, you need to assess 4 things and just to sum up what we talked about today. Number 1, your mindset. How are you viewing challenges? Number 2, how do I show up as a leader in my family? How am I setting up the environment for my child to succeed and to manage stress? Am I reassuring my child, or am I helping them understand that they can manage and control their own circumstances and their own emotions? Number 3, am I viewing change as an opportunity to assess what's working well? And number 4, am I viewing change as an opportunity to create an effective routine? Because when you're thrown for a loop, that's a perfect time to understand where your routine is dipping. And it starts first with you guys. So I encourage you to reach out, book a call with me, meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk. If you found yourselves really struggling during this time when your child needs you the most to lead as a steady, supportive parent who knows that this will pass and who knows that with a plan, this will pass in a way that does not feel chaotic that does not feel out of control, but that feels that your child and you feel capable. Last I checked, guys, I had one spot left in March, towards the end of the month. So reach out to me, get on the wait list if you need to. And I'll post the link to talk to me if you when this finishes up. I think if I can. I don't know if I can do that while I'm talking. It's late. I'm kind of. Well, let's see. There we go. Yeah, I can get that done. All right, guys. Here we are, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.